Hello, friends. Mac Payne here, the originator, owner, and operator of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. I'm here on this video to let you know I have just published another tremendous episode of my podcast, Vietnam Veteran News. It has to do with the attack on the Special Forces camp at Lang Vei. This story is very important to me because I was at Lang Vei. The attack on Lang Vei that we talk about in this podcast episode occurred in February of 1968. That's right in the middle of the Tet Offensive when the Khe Sanh siege was going on. I was out at Khe Sanh in February of 1971, 3 years after this. I was flying Cobra gunships and A Battery, 4th of the 77th Field Artillery, firing rockets in support of the South Vietnamese in Operation Lam Sam 719. When we were out there, I heard stories that Lang Vei had been attacked before. Now, we'd been by Lang Vei many times, and there were Special Forces guys there in 1971. But I heard it was attacked, but I never knew the details of the attack and when and what happened and everything. And luckily, I recently discovered a story on the We Are the Mighty website that describes that battle. It was a big deal. Now, Lang Vei is probably one of the most dangerous places in South Vietnam during the war. It sat only maybe 500 yards from the Laotian border and about 2 or 3 miles west of Khe Sanh. The battle that's going to be covered in this podcast episode has to do with the attack in 1968. And for the first time, the NVA used PT-76 tanks against this outpost that had only about 20 or 25 Americans there, Special Forces guys. Some of the bravest of the brave. But this podcast episode is going to describe that battle in detail. And one of the things it describes is the tremendous hero by the name of Eugene Ashley, who received the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions there, and that'll be covered in this story. So it is a good thing. If you care anything about history of the Vietnam War and the bravery of the Vietnam veterans, you must listen to this podcast episode. I made it easy for you. All you've got to do is to go down below this vintage TV set that I'm appearing on and click on the site for the podcast. But before you do that, do me a favor. Just above the site, just before the link that takes you to the podcast, there will be another link there that says, Buy Me a Coffee. The purpose of that site is to help me support this podcast that I've been doing for 12 years, paying for everything. It'd be nice to get a little support, which I'd greatly appreciate. And you can do that in the form of buying me a coffee. All you've got to do is click on that link, go to the site where it says buy me a coffee. You can say, I want to buy 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups, or whatever you want to do. It's great. It would be great if you would do that and help support me and the expenses that I have incurred in this podcast. It would be very nice. And I'm just an old retired Vietnam veteran. Won't you help out an old retired Vietnam veteran? That's me. So consider that as you go down to click on the link to the podcast episode where you will get the straight story about what happened at Lang Vei back in 1968. And when Eugene Ashley and what Eugene Ashley did to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. The sad thing about that is Eugene died in that attack. It was a terrible thing for such a brave man to be cut down so young in his life. That's why we need to remember them and pay our respects to them. So with that in mind, don't delay. Just go down below this vintage TV set, click on buy me a coffee, buy me a cup of coffee, then go down and click on the link to my podcast, VietnamVeteranNews.com, episode 3188. You will also find a picture of Sergeant First Class Eugene Ashley Jr. on that episode. You should go there and pay your respects to his memory for the great thing he did for this country. So now the ball is in your court. Go to my podcast after you buy me a cup of coffee. Thank you very much. This is Mac Payne here, owner, operator, and originator of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Now go over and listen to this episode so you can discover what our brave guys did at the Battle of Lang Vei back in February of 1968. Talk soon.